The supermarket shelves are bare, have been for 6 weeks. You walk past the same cracked window. You walk past every morning, and the same shopping cart is still tipped over in the parking lot, rusting, picked clean. Somewhere a dog is barking at nothing. Your kid is asking, for the 3rd time today, when dinner is, and the can of beans you've been rationing has exactly 4 spoonfuls left in it. You open your pantry, you open it again, like maybe you missed something. You didn't. This is where most people break. Not from violence, not from the cold, from the slow, grinding mathematics of an empty stomach. And this is the part where every survival channel on the planet tells you to go buy 5 acres, get chickens, plant corn, and become a homesteader. Cool. You don't have 5 acres. You have a backyard the size of a parking space, or a balcony, or a sunny window next to a radiator. And here's what they won't say out loud on the mainstream channels, because it doesn't sell tractors. You don't need a farm. You need a microfarm. And a properly built one, the kind I'm about to walk you through, can feed 7 families from a footprint smaller than a 2-car garage. Yeah, 7. Not 1, not 2, 7. Stay with me. Because later I'm going to show you the one crop nobody talks about that turns your microfarm from cute hobby into neighborhood insurance policy. Miss it and you're gardening. Catch it and you're feeding your street? Let's get into it. Here's the thing the USDA doesn't put on a poster. A square foot of properly stacked, intensively planted growing space can produce somewhere between 10 and 30 times what a traditional row garden produces. Research out of the University of California on biointensive growing has shown yields 4 to 6 times higher per square foot than industrial agriculture. The Dervaes family in Pasadena pulls around 6,000 pounds of food off 1/10 of an acre. 1/10 of an acre. That's smaller than most suburban lawns. And they're doing it on urban dirt next to a freeway. So when I say 7 families from your backyard, I'm not selling you a dream. I'm quoting the math. The problem isn't space. The problem is that the enemy of the microfarm is a thing with a personality. Entropy. Decay is that silent, patient force that waits for you to skip a watering, miss a pest, forget to mulch. Entropy is a looter with no face. It steals from you in slow motion, and you beat it by being smarter, not bigger. All right, the first layer of your microfarm, call it the Calorie Engine. Because here's the trap every beginner falls into. They plant salad, lettuce, kale, pretty leafy things that photograph well. Congratulations, you've grown garnish. In a grid-down world, a bowl of lettuce is basically flavored water. You need calories, dense, storable, boring calories that keep a human upright. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, dry beans. That's the engine. A single 4x8 raised bed of potatoes, grown in a stacked tower system with straw and soil, can push out 80 to 100 pounds of potatoes in one season. Sweet potatoes go even harder because the leaves are edible too. You're eating the plant twice. Add a bed of butternut squash, trained up a vertical trellis, and you've got food that sits in your pantry for 6 months without a refrigerator. No power, no canning, just a cool, dark corner. I tried growing lettuce my first year and nothing else. By November, I was furious at past me. Don't be past me. Layer 2, the protein patch. The cold is a thief, but hunger is a slower one, and protein is how you starve it out. Dry beans, lentils, peas. These are the stuff that kept entire civilizations alive through winters that don't care about your feelings. 1 pound of bean seed, properly spaced in about 40 square feet, gives you roughly 10 to 15 pounds of dried beans. That's 3,000 calories a pound, shelf-stable for years. You don't refrigerate it, you don't can it, you pour it in a jar and forget about it until Tuesday. Stack it with a crop called amaranth. Looks like a weed. Acts like a grain. One plant drops up to 100,000 seeds, and the leaves taste like spinach with a chip on its shoulder. The Aztecs built an empire on amaranth. It's not exotic. It's just forgotten on purpose. Layer 3. The vertical jungle. This is where your yield explodes. And this is where most preppers lose their minds. Stop thinking in rows. Start thinking in floors. Tomato plant trained up a string grows 10 feet tall in a pot the size of a 5-gallon bucket. Pole beans climb a bamboo teepee and give you 4 times the beans of a bush variety. Cucumbers go vertical. Malabar spinach goes vertical. Even melons, with a sling made from an old t-shirt, a pantyhose, a ripped-up pillowcase, will dangle happily off a trellis. Every square foot of ground becomes 3 square feet of production. That's not a trick. That's just sunlight doing its job when you stop blocking it. Real quick, before I show you layer 4. If you've made it this far, you're clearly not the kind of person who's planning to stand in a FEMA line. Hit the subscribe button. I'm not begging. I'm just saying, when the algorithm buries the next video in this series, you don't want to be the guy who missed the part about seed storage 3 weeks before he needed it. Click it. Move on. We've got beans to grow. Layer 4. The protein that runs. Rabbits. Quail. Tilapia in a blue barrel if you want to get weird with it. A single breeding pair of rabbits, properly managed, produces around 180 pounds of meat a year. That's from a cage the size of a coffee table. Quail lay eggs in 6 weeks from hatching and take less space than a toaster oven. They're not pretty, they're not cuddly, and they don't need to be. They're protein on 4 legs or 2 wings, eating scraps that would otherwise rot. Trade-offs. You've got to be willing to do the work. Nature doesn't do customer service now. Remember that crop I said would turn this from hobby to insurance? Here it is. Sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes. Some people call them fartichokes because, well, you'll find out. They look like ugly ginger. They taste somewhere between a potato and a water chestnut. And here is the dirty little secret the gardening magazines leave out. You plant them once. They come back every year, whether you want them to or not. They laugh at drought. They ignore bad soil. A 10 by 10 patch will give you 100 to 200 pounds of tubers annually, and you cannot kill them if you try. I know. I tried. This is your insurance crop. The one that feeds the neighbors when every other plant in the garden gives up. The one that survives the winter you forgot to plan for. The one that fills the gap between we're fine and we're not fine. Here's the science, the part that flatters your intelligence and explains why all this nonsense actually feeds 7 households. A human adult needs roughly 2,000 calories a day. 7 families, call it 25 people, need 50,000 calories daily. Sounds impossible on a small plot. It isn't, because you're not feeding them entirely. You're supplementing. You're providing the protein, the fresh vegetables, the storage calories, the eggs, the things the collapsed supply chain can't deliver. Grocery stores, when they existed, held about 3 days of food. 3, that's the margin civilization ran on. You're replacing 3 days with 365. A well-designed 400-square-foot microfarm, intensively planted, stacked vertically, rotated seasonally, with rabbits or quail on the edge and sunchokes along the back fence, pumps out somewhere between 500 and 2,500 pounds of food a year. That's the conservative number. Real homesteaders hit higher. And food, in a world where the trucks have stopped, isn't just calories. It's currency. It's leverage. It's the reason the family 3 doors down doesn't look at your house the way the wolf looks at the hen house. Quick question for you, because I actually read the comments. If you've ever grown something, anything, and watched it produce more than you expected, drop it below. A tomato plant that wouldn't quit. A zucchini that tried to take over the yard. That one herb in the windowsill that outlived 2 apartments. I want to know what your microfarm started as, because everyone started somewhere, and somebody scrolling past your story tonight needs to read it. One last thing, the part nobody says out loud. A microfarm isn't just food. It's the only system I know that runs on sunlight, rain, and stubbornness and produces more than you put into it. Everything else in the grid-down world is a slow drain. Fuel burns, batteries die, cans empty, but a seed properly planted pays you back 1,000 times. That's not gardening. That's alchemy with dirt. Now rewind back to that empty pantry, the cracked window, the rusted cart in the parking lot, the kid asking about dinner. Only this time, you walk past the window and out the back door, and there's a raised bed heavy with squash, a climbing wall of beans, a patch of ugly tubers by the fence that keeps coming back no matter what. You dig up 3 potatoes, you pull a handful of beans, you crack 2 quail eggs. Dinner takes 20 minutes, and nobody asks twice. That's the whole game, not survival. Continuity. And you just built it. If this helped you see your backyard differently, hit subscribe and stick around. The next one's on seed saving, the one skill that turns a one-year garden into a forever one. And trust me, you're going to want it before you need it.